Radio is broadcast on LSL Podcast Channel. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel.
Let not your heart be troubled. You are listening to the Sean Hannity Radio Show podcast. All right, so I have insomnia, but I've never slept better. And what's changed? Just a pillow. It's had such a positive impact on my life. And, of course, I'm talking about My Pillow. I fall asleep faster, I stay asleep longer, and now you can, too. Just go to MyPillow.com or call 800-919-6090. Use the promo code Hannity, and Mike Lindell, the inventor of My Pillow, has the special 4-pack. Now, you get 40% off 2 My Pillow Premiums and 2 Go Anywhere pillows. Now, My Pillow is made here in the USA, has a 60-day unconditional money-back guarantee, and a 10-year warranty. Go to MyPillow.com right now or call 800-919-6090, promo code Hannity, to get Mike Lindell's special 4-pack offer. You get 2 My Pillow premium pillows and 2 Go Anywhere pillows for 40% off, and that means once those pillows arrive, you start getting the kind of peaceful and restful and comfortable and deep healing and recuperative sleep that you've been craving and you certainly deserve. MyPillow.com, promo code Hannity. You will love this pillow.
But I cannot stress this enough. Get prepared now. Know your evacuation zone. Listen to your local officials. This storm has the potential to catastrophically devastate our state, and you have to take this seriously. This is a catastrophic storm that our state has never seen. Remember, it has already killed many people in the Caribbean. People do not believe you can ride this storm out. If you're told to evacuate, you've got to evacuate. You can rebuild your home. You can get your possessions again. You cannot rebuild your life or your family. Protecting life is our absolute top priority. No resource or expense will be spared to protect families, but we cannot protect you in the middle of the storm. This means you need to plan now on where you need to go. Do not wait. Figure out where you need to go.
All right, that's Governor Rick Scott of Florida. I'm looking at the Drudge Report. You have been warned. Where will she turn? And I literally just moments ago got an update from Joe Bastardi, who's telling me that its track that he's had now for a couple of days seems to be on par, and that is that the hurricane literally is going to hit a direct hit to South Florida. Direct, boom. And it's probably going to come in at a Cat 4 or 5. And this is the real deal. And I know many of you have been urged to get out of the way. Now, look, it's very, very tough because a lot of you to get out of the way of this storm. All right, now you're facing gas shortages. One of the best things I saw the governor of Florida do, I give him a lot of credit. I've known Rick Scott a long time. Smart, great, efficient governor of the state of Florida. I've gotten to know him so well because he keeps coming up to New York trying to steal New York businesses and incentivize them to go down to Florida. And he's often pretty successful at it, which is why he's one of the top job creating governors in the country. Just to let you know. And so he's been able to work with surrounding governors in nearby states in the Carolinas and Georgia and Alabama and elsewhere. And he's been able to allow these states to lift their burdens of what it is at the hours that these truck drivers can drive, et cetera, so that they can get this gas because they have a bit of a gas shortage along gas lines as people now, begin to gas up and make their move out of, dangerous areas. The sad part is for Florida is, and I'm not trying to be Mr. Negative here, is it's not only going to hit Miami directly, it's going to be hitting as closely as on the west side of Florida, like Naples, and even as far as Fort Myers. But it makes an eastwardly turn up the coast, headed towards Georgia and the Carolinas. Savannah is now under an evacuation order in Georgia, and I have no doubt the same thing is coming in South Carolina. The only thing that you do have at this particular time is a little bit of time. And it's not really, you won't really see the beginnings of this until early morning on Saturday. And we'll get a professional opinion from Joe Bastardi, but we've been studying it all day. And every warning is now out there. I don't know why people feel compelled on either social media or the people that I know. I have a lot of friends in South Florida. I have a lot of friends in Miami. I have a lot of friends in Naples and Fort Myers and Sarasota, and they're all saying, we're going to ride this sucker out. We've ridden out all these other ones, and I'm like, Well, are they telling you to evacuate? If they tell you to evacuate, you can replace your condo, replace your house. You can't replace yourself. And I don't know, maybe I just err on the side of caution. I think I'd get the hell out of here. And as Drudge says today, you've been warned. Which way is she going to turn? Let me give you the latest news on this. The Miami Beach mayor has now said residents must leave. And I'll quote him, "This is a nuclear hurricane." Now, official warnings have been issued for up to 10-foot storm surges in Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale. This is all of Florida is going to get whacked here. Every bit of Florida is going to get hit. I have friends that have chartered planes. I have friends waiting for commercial flights. You're going to wait a long time for your commercial flight. I even heard from a friend of mine that was able to charter, I guess, some airplane to go up east, and apparently he's like plane number 80 in line to take off. So it's going to be a long time before they ever take off. You know, some of the other warnings that are being issued, no buildings we can guarantee to keep people safe. None. The storm tightens aim. It just seems to, if you look at the cone and the model of this, it seems that it's going to impact every major city in Florida. That's how severe this is going to be. The FEMA chief has said this is going to be devastating. I called over to some of the people I know in the White House. I said, okay, what is the federal government doing on their end? They have food, medicine, water, guard troops. Everyone's deployed, ready to go in and help now to the extent they can, and they will literally be funneling it all in the second. They positioned all of the things that they're going to need to literally be brought in the second after they can start getting through. You've got thousands and thousands of troops deployed. I know for those of you who maybe made a late run to the grocery store, supplies have been cleaned out. Gas stations are running dry. Military and state police are escorting these fuel trucks in so people can get gassed up and get moving. I got to give a lot of credit to Governor Scott and his quick resourcefulness in making sure that he was bringing in more gasoline for people that want to make the trek and get out of town and get out of Dodge and get to safer ground. You have the sheriff, a friend of mine down in Naples, this guy Carmine is with the local sheriff. He just sent me a picture. They're literally going out and picking up every homeless person that they know in the Naples area, and they're bringing them to safety, and they're doing it now. And again, it's not going to happen until Saturday, which is great planning on their part. You have, and I'll get to this in more detail in a second, you have nuclear power plants that are in this path of this flight. Look, let me just say this, because I know we're in every major city in Florida. Let me say to friends of this show, let me give you the following advice. And this is coming for somebody that is not, and Linda will testify to this, the most patient human being on earth. Well, maybe Sunshine would do that, because if I say, let's go, hurry up, she gets upset and gives me an 80 for when Linda's out. It's one of those moments, look, it is what it is. Just accept it. If you're flying out, you're going to have to go bring a computer, bring something that you can distract yourself with, do emails, text your friends, call your family, play chess. I don't know if any of you play chess on your phone. Find something that'll occupy your time, because you're going to probably be waiting a lot. If you're in line waiting for gas, understand it's on its way. And so we definitely, is Governor Scott there? Yeah, I definitely want to go to Governor Scott.
Times. Please only take what you need. Be considerate of others. The GoBuddy app is a great resource to find open stations with fuel. The GoBuddy app. Yesterday, I asked the governors Alabama, South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina to rescind weight and driver regulations so out-of-state resources could move expeditiously into Florida. All of these states worked quickly to respond to our request. The EPA has approved an emergency fuel waiver request from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, which will allow more fuel to quickly enter the state. All ports still remain open and operating to bring fuel and supplies in. We are laser focused on how we get as much fuel as possible to ports while they are open. The Florida Keys. I've offered school buses for transportation needs in Monroe, Miami-Dade, and Broward counties. At this time, Miami-Dade is using these services to help evacuate those with special needs, and Broward has buses on standby. Monroe has said they do not need these buses right now because they're using city buses, but my offer still stands. Right now, there are mandatory evacuation orders in effect for the Florida Keys. This means all residents and visitors. leave the Keys. We estimate that about 31,000 people had already evacuated from the Keys as of 6 p.m. last night. If you're in the Keys and still home, leave and get out. We can't save you once the storm hits. The entire Lower Keys Hospital has already been evacuated. All other hospitals in the Keys will be evacuated today. I've been very clear with Monroe County that the state will provide whatever resources are necessary to get the hospitals back open quickly following the storm. We also have a task force devoted entirely to helping prepare and respond to the Keys. Their issues are somewhat different because they have all those bridges down there. For the remainder of the state waiting on evacuation orders, listen to your local officials. They will tell you if and when your area needs to be evacuated. If you're told to evacuate, get out quickly. The roads will fill up quickly as you need to go. We can expect additional evacuations as the storm continues north through our state. In Broward County, there are voluntary evacuations ordered for mobile homes and low-lying areas, and mandatory evacuations ordered for east of Federal Highway, including Barrier Islands. In Miami-Dade County, there are mandatory evacuations ordered for Barrier Islands, Val Harbor, Bay Harbor Islands, Golden Beach, Indian Creek Village, Miami Beach, North Bay Village, Sunny Isles Beach, and Surfside. In Monroe County, there are mandatory evacuations for all residents and visitors. If you live in any of these evacuation zones and you're still at home, leave. In Collier County, there are voluntary evacuations ordered from Marco Island. In Hendrick County, there are voluntary evacuations ordered for low-lying areas, non-slab built homes, mobile homes, and RVs. I cannot stress this enough. Do not ignore evacuation orders. Remember, we can rebuild your home, you can buy your possessions again. We can't rebuild your life, and we can't recreate your family. Regardless of which coast you live on, be prepared to evacuate. The storm can move and change on a moment's notice. Floridians on the West Coast cannot be complacent, and those in coastal areas should be prepared to leave. Traffic. Many of you I know are already stuck in traffic. I know it has to be frustrating, but please be patient. Evacuations are not meant to be convenient. They're meant to keep you safe. We're trying to do these evacuations as safely as possible. We have increased the number of troopers on Florida highways to help move traffic and keep people going down the road. Real-time traffic information and evacuation routes is available at fl511.com. We have traffic cameras on every major highway in Florida, and we're clearing traffic issues in real time so we can keep people moving. FDOT and law enforcement are working diligently. We're already seeing bottlenecks at major highway junctions, which brings up an important point. You do not need to evacuate out of the state or hundreds of miles away to be safe. Find shelters in your county. We are coordinating with Google's emergency response team to prepare to close roads in Google Maps in real time in the event that Hurricane Irma forces the closure of any roads in the aftermath of the storm. In my direction, all tolls have been waived across Florida roadways. This should help families evacuate quickly and safely. Again, if you're concerned you don't have a way to evacuate due to traffic, call the Florida Emergency Hotline, 1-800-342-3557. It's a dedicated hotline. National Guard. Today I'm activating another 3,000 National Guard members to help with shelter operations and evacuations. Today we'll have more than 4,000 Florida National Guard members activated to immediately begin assisting with ongoing Hurricane Irma preparation. Tomorrow, every available member of the National Guard, 7,000, will be deployed around the state. 13 helicopters and more than 1,000 tactical high-water vehicles are on standby ready to be deployed. By using resources from other states, we also have 30,000 troops, 4,000 trucks, 100 helicopters, and air evacuation crews ready to support our state.
All right, we're going to break in here. We've got Joe Bastardi coming up. That's the governor of Florida, Rick Scott. He was pretty much saying everything I was going to say to you. Be very extra patient. Hang in there. Gas is on its way. It's going to be slow. It's going to it's going to drive you nuts. It's going to be a little difficult, but we want everyone coming out with their life here. My suggestion is for all my hurricane warriors out there writing me, I'm going to hunker down. I don't care what they say. I guess it's your choice, but we'd rather you stay in one piece. Quick break. Right back. Joe Bastardi, weatherbell.com is next. My advice, get out of Dodge if you can. All right, watching Hurricane Irma, the governor just pretty much said everything I want to say. If you're in an airport, be patient. If you're in a long line and traffic is moving slow, be patient. and hang in there. And, the other thing, I don't know why there's so many weather warriors out there. Linda, have you gotten emails from people? Oh, I'm gonna tough this one out. They say it's going to be the one every time.
Yeah, I mean, I think people just all think that they're, superhuman and they're able to survive these hurricanes. I mean, if we've learned anything, it's just how dangerous they are.
Listen, I just want people to come out with their lives and, then, listen, the country's going to be there like we were with Texas, and we're going to raise the money, and Texas, is going to rebuild, and they're going to do it expeditiously. And I know it's not fun. It's a natural disaster, and we can't prevent it. We can just, get on board, and we love our friends in Florida, and we're going to help them out. Federal government is as prepared as I've ever seen them for any storm, and we just got to be careful. They're saying, here was a story in the Daily Beast today, this Hurricane Irma is stronger than all of 2017's other 8 Atlantic storms combined. This is not a game here. We're talking about your life. You saw the devastation of this island, Barbuda, which I'd never heard of, 2,000 residents. It totally demolished the whole island, the whole thing. 95% of all dwellings are gone. I mean, you've got it wiping out 2 Caribbean islands, battering Puerto Rico with 185-mile-an-hour recorded winds, and destroying 95% of Barbuda and St. Martin, killing at least 10 people. And, there's one other article out today, could be, the biggest natural disaster of our time. And as has been reported, it looks like the largest ever recorded hurricane in the Atlantic. And we have 2 South Florida nuclear power plants. I hope to God they're ready for what's coming. I assume they were built with this in mind. I've got to believe that. It may topple all construction cranes in South Florida, especially Miami. You got to be very careful. It's the strongest ever Atlantic storm. And look at the Caribbean as a great example. And it's the size of about Michigan when you look at the size of this hurricane. And radar images showing a final flight escape from Puerto Rico. That was pretty scary, too. But anyway, the military is preparing. Mattis has approved a number of Navy ships, 4 of them, for potential disaster relief. When we come back, Joe Bastardi, weatherbell.com, we'll get a full reading on all of this.
You know Florida very well. How concerned are you about Hurricane Irma?
We're very concerned. We are working very hard. We have tremendous groups of talented people there. The people of Florida are like the people of Texas, Louisiana. You've seen how the people of our country have reacted under this tremendous pressure and these horrible things that we call hurricanes. This is something that is probably bigger, not as much water, but much more power than Harvey. The governor has so far done a terrific job. I mean, they're prepared. We don't know exactly where it's going to be landing, where landfall will be, but we think we're as well prepared as you can possibly be. Many of the folks have left Texas, obviously, on an emergency basis and come down to Florida. Puerto Rico escaped. It could have been far worse. They really escaped the brunt, but it's heading right now, right directly into Florida. So hopefully it'll take a turn, go east and do it quickly. Right now it's not doing that. We are with the people of Florida, and as you know, the Virgin Islands got hit very hard, very, very hard, and we're finding out the kind of damage. Communication is actually difficult. We have people right now on the Virgin Islands, and we'll see how that is, but it's been hit very, very hard. I can say this, Florida is as well prepared as you can be for something like this. Now it's just a question of what happens. It's the largest hurricane they've ever seen coming out of the Atlantic, and the winds are the strongest, most importantly. This is the real problem. The winds are the strongest that they've ever seen in a hurricane coming from that region. So we're with everybody in Florida. We're working very hard. We have tremendous talent and really tremendously brave people to be there, and hopefully it's going to work out all right. We'll see over the next few hours.
How fearful are you about
Are you concerned, Mr. President, that FEMA may be spread too thin right now?
Well, FEMA is doing an incredible job, as you all know. I mean, you've been reporting it. You've seen how incredible they are, and there's a great bravery to what they're doing. But certainly, we're being hit with a lot of hurricanes. We've never had a thing like this where you get hit with Harvey, which was about as bad as it gets, certainly from the standpoint of a water dump, and then you get hit with Irma, and there's one right behind Irma. I guess you probably know, a smaller one, but nevertheless right behind. I don't think anybody has done anything like they've done at FEMA, and they have done a really good job. You see what happened in Texas, and you see already in terms of what's going on in Florida. I have to also give a special shout out to the Coast Guard. The United States Coast Guard saved 14,000 lives in Texas. 14,000 lives. And now I think the number's even higher than that. These people, and they go right into the eye of the storm. You know what's been happening. Most of you have been reporting. The number is astronomical. I mean, what could have been a total catastrophe in terms of life has been obviously much less. So I just want to say that the Coast Guard of our country has really performed incredibly. I've never seen anything like it. I've gotten to meet them. I've gotten to meet a lot of the folks when I was in Texas, and these are tremendous people. They are now shifting a lot of their effort to Florida, right in the middle of it. The difference, again, being these winds are tremendous. They have never seen winds like this coming off the ocean. So hopefully it's going to not hit Florida very directly, but it looks like it's going to be hitting it.
All right, that was the president from earlier today. I didn't know that figure of 14,000. That would be really incredibly amazing. 800-941-SEAN is a number. We're going to get to the chief meteorologist here, the Sean Hannity Show, in just a second. I want to point out some other things and give you some headlines first. One bit of news I mentioned in the last segment in anticipation of this Category 5 storm, Florida Power and Light, they have 2 nuclear plants were finalizing their staffing plans and cleaning up the grounds late yesterday, but neither Turkey Point nor St. Lucie plant, which is up further on the coast, had made the call yet to shut down the power plants. Anyway, Florida Power and Light has long defended the safety of their nuclear power plants, which both sit along the coast, where they are exposed, obviously, to the strongest winds and storm surge of these hurricanes. So when the eye of Hurricane Andrew passed over Turkey Point in 1992, some facilities around the reactor buildings took a beating, and ultimately the state's oldest nuclear power plant suffered $90 million in damage, including to systems that were supposed to be, quote, hurricane-proof. Well, this is a stronger hurricane, and one of their 400-foot smokestacks for the old oil-burning power plant was cracked in half, even though it was rated to survive 235-mile-per-hour winds. Andrew blew down all but 6 of the 41 warning sirens within 10 miles of the plant, and the storm left the plant running on backup generators for more than a week to cool the shutdown reactor. A main access road also cut down, so we're going to be watching that very closely. Hopefully they had put new provisions in place. The New York Post today had a headline, Hurricane Irma, Caribbean island wiped off the map. Now, yesterday, our friend Joe Bastardi was talking about that. The island of Barbuda, practically uninhabitable now after it was steamrolled by Hurricane Irma. And anyway, Barbuda and Antigua Prime Minister reported that 90% of the structures there were destroyed by the hurricane, which was packing, at that particular point, sustained winds of 185 miles an hour. And as it stands, quote, it's practically uninhabitable. The prime minister said, telling Antigua Barbuda Broadcasting Services, adding the destruction on the island home to nearly 1,700 people is heart-wrenching. St. Bart's has a senator that sounded equally stunned, saying that I'm shocked by the monster that covers us. The island is devastated. It's apocalyptic, a lot of damage, and many roofs destroyed. So obviously this is a big warning for the people of Florida. And again, just to give you some of the headlines, we've got Miami now is saying the Miami Beach mayor, residents must leave. This is a nuclear hurricane. You got official warnings now issued up to 10-foot storms and a surge in Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale. Quote, the statement was put out, no buildings we can guarantee to keep people safe. This is going to impact every major city in Florida. The FEMA chief is saying it will be devastating. You got thousands of troops now have already been deployed. You got supplies now are literally being pre-positioned in anticipation of the needs that are going to come immediately in the aftermath of this. You got military and state police still escorting fuel from neighboring states. As the governor said, the weight and distribution regulations are now being lifted, and the EPA is allowing these other states to allow their fuel waivers to go in place. That means more gasoline getting more quickly to the people that are trying to make their exit. The U.S. military now has readied 4 Navy ships for the potential disaster in Florida. because this will engulf the entire state, it looks like, moving aircraft and U.S. troops in advance of their arrival, readying 4 specific Navy ships. General Defense Secretary Mattis did that personally. I urge you to pay attention to this headline. Hurricane Irma is stronger than all of 2017's other 8 Atlantic storms combined. As I said, Barbuda, 95% devastated, all of their dwellings. We have recorded 185-mile-per-hour sustained winds. And on top of all of that, it looks like the largest ever recorded in the Atlantic. Joe Bastardi is the official weather guy of the Sean Hannity Show with weatherbell.com. How are you, my friend? I hate to say it, you're 2 for 2 here in terms of you nailed this from the beginning. And I know it's good for our listeners to get as much advance notice as possible. Is this going to be as bad as we saw in the Caribbean?
Yes, where it makes landfall, and if it comes up the east coast of Florida, has the potential to be one of the top 2 or 3 storms in Florida, and then perhaps for Georgia or South Carolina, and that's something that we haven't really seen. It takes a unique track to do that. You take Hugo, for instance, which devastated Puerto Rico, and then went on to hit South Carolina. The track of this one, of course, we missed Puerto Rico. We were saying that it would be the Virgin Islands, not Puerto Rico. But it's coming right at Florida. Now, it's amazing. The end game of this is going to be very, very tricky, folks. And by that I mean the extra 50 or 60 miles. If this moves a little bit further west than what I have, then the danger increases for the southwest coast of the direct strike and the Florida Keys being cut off. Remember what happened in 1935, and I've referenced that storm. I know people say, don't be bringing up these past storms. Well, listen, the Florida Keys got cut off completely. Trains were blown off their tracks, and so that's the kind of power this storm may have when it reaches the Florida coast. Right now, the track, the Hurricane Center and myself, we have the same track up the east coast of Florida. But you've got to understand that when you're talking about a storm 3 days away in terms of the entire atmosphere, that 50, 60-mile difference is very, very tough to predict. If it comes a little bit further west, then the north turn comes in more toward the Keys and Naples, and then we're dealing with that side. In any case, it looks like it's a bad storm on the west coast, a devastating storm on the east coast, is what we've got right now. And that eastern track over Miami, West Palm Beach, offshore again and around Cape Canaveral, back in at Savannah or Charleston, means the storm would maintain more intensity further north. So it's a.
Let me ask you this in terms of you have not changed your trajectory of this storm yet. And you predicted on day one that it probably would move a little bit eastward, if I recall, and that appears what it's doing. But if you look at the cone and the coverage, National Weather Service, and even the one that you sent me just before the show today, it appears, as you pointed out, the west coast of Florida is going to be hit, too. It's going to be severe, but it's the east coast that's going to get hit. But isn't, for example, from Miami, say, up until Fort Myers on the west coast, they're going to get hit particularly hard, and then especially in Miami and then Broward County and into Palm Beach and West Palm Beach, they're going to get whacked really hard. Is that where you see this hitting?
Yeah, but what I'm trying to also make sure people understand is that there's a possibility that it tries to come in a little bit further west. I'm more worried about it being a little bit further west than further east. In other words, I'm not that worried as far as a forecasting option goes when I look at it, that it's going to miss Florida to the east. I'm more worried that the center is going to be a little bit further west, which would be a devastating storm in Miami.
When you say west, it's identify the city.
Well, across the Florida Keys, and maybe coming in in a way where it's pretty close to Naples and Fort Myers. You could
basically, you're telling me it's going right over my house. Is that what you're telling me, Bastardi?
No.
That's what you're telling me. You're telling me it's going right over my house.
No, what I'm saying is your house. Listen, the west side.
Listen, I don't care about my house. I'm messing with you. But here's the important question. All right, for those people that are on the coast, now let's just deal with the bottom tip, if you will, from the Keys, Marco Island, Naples, Fort Myers, and then let's go to Miami, Broward County. Let's go to Palm Beach, West Palm Beach counties. Let's start there because that's where it's going to basically make land, right, in that area.
Yeah, the area from the track is right, from the northern Florida Keys up to West Palm Beach is ground zero for this, and the entire area gets hit by as strong a hurricane as they've seen if the current track is right. So that area is the area that I'm most concerned about initially. That people have to take this extremely
when is
seriously to a point.
All right, so if they're told to evacuate, what if you're 15 miles inland? Is that safe enough?
Well, I don't know what your house is like. I don't know the exposure.
It's a tough place. A lot of factors. I get it.
Are you living next to a tidal marsh or whatever?
Well, let me ask you about this. What about Tampa? What about Orlando, which is central Florida, I-4 corridor?
Well, I think Tampa's going to be on the west side of the storm, and this is not the kind of storm that devastates Tampa, because the benchmark storm from Tampa has to come from the southwest and hit them just to the north. And
Orlando is central Florida. What's Orlando?
Well, Orlando, if this storm comes up just inland, let's say it makes landfall just to the west of Miami and comes straight north, it's going to be a bad storm in Orlando. They're going to have winds over 100 miles an hour, at least in gusts. And so Orlando's going to be bad. The inland areas, there is going to be a heck of a lot of wind. The problem you have on the coast, of course, is you have a major storm surge.
Yeah.
You have all those high-rise buildings in Miami. The wind funnels through there. They were 400, 500 feet high. This thing is a wind of 180, 190 miles an hour. You funnel it through the building, and you'll shatter glass. I don't know how strong they are. Remember what Alicia did in Houston, just blew all the glass out. Ike did too. So the same kind of things may occur with these high-rises. I don't know what they're tested for, but this will be the ultimate test to them if this storm passes directly over them. And there's
Last
a good
question.
chance it does.
When do you expect this to make landfall? Because a lot of people are worried about timing, and there's a shortage of gas, and people need to get to safer locations. When do you expect this hits?
I know that personally. I'm up in St. Augustine, and there were lines last night, and a lot of stations out of gas, but I think it comes in late Saturday night, probably by around midnight Saturday night.
Okay.
That's when the landfall is going to be taking place between between the Key Largo and up toward Miami, right in that general area is where I think the center is going to pass right now. But we're keeping you updated every day.
All right, we really appreciate it. Joe Bastardi, weatherbell.com. We'll get back into the hurricane later. You're going to join me on TV tonight and bring some pictures and explain it in more detail, and it being visual, I think, is going to be better for people. Thanks, Joe. We'll see you tonight. All right, when we come back, Newt Gingrich joins us. We got a lot of news out of Washington we'll get to, and much more. Sarah Carter as well.
Our country and our economy cannot take off like they should unless we reform America's outdated, complex, and extremely burdensome. This is so complicated and so burdensome, our tax code. If we want to renew our prosperity, restore our opportunity, and reestablish our economic dominance, which is what we should be doing, then we need tax reform that is pro-growth, pro-jobs, pro-worker, pro-family, and yes, pro-American. My administration is working with Congress to develop a plan that will deliver more jobs, higher pay, lower taxes for businesses of all sizes and middle-class families all across the nation. So it's not only business taxes, it's middle-income families, it's families at every level, tax cuts. And anybody that's going to vote against tax cuts and tax reforms, whether it's in North Dakota or anybody else or any place else, you got to vote against them and get them out of office because it is so bad.
All right, hour two, Sean Hannity Show, toll-free. Telephone numbers, 800-941-SEAN. You want to be a part of the program? Joining us, Newt Gingrich, author of the best-selling book, Understanding Trump. He also has out a brand-new executive online class that he himself is hosting. I've often told you that he is a great historian and professor, probably more of a professor at heart, historian at heart, than he ever was a politician, on how to defend America. And the speaker joins us now. How are you?
I'm doing great, and you're right. The course is a Defending America course. AmericaCourse.com. And we did it. You'll remember years ago when we first knew each other, I did Renewing American Civilization as a course. And people for years have said to me, why don't I go back and modernize it and update it, given how the left has evolved? And it struck me that there's probably real interest around the country in how to defend America and how to defeat the left when you get an argument with them.
I want to put emphasis on this. So I think you did this in either it was in the late 80s or early 90s. I think the early 90s, right?
Yeah, I did it in 93, and after I became Speaker, I did it one more time in 95.
Renewing American Civilization. I actually went back once, and I had lost whatever copy I had at the time, and I actually went back and revisited it. And it became such a powerful tool that actually was used by candidates around the country to bring Republicans to power in 94 when you became Speaker for the first time in 40 years. And a lot of what you said back then holds true today. And I think the idea of updating this is a great idea. I hope, I look at the Republican Party now as a party without identity. Can you please send a free copy to every one of these people in Congress?
Well, I think I'm hoping that they will, in fact, get it and take a look at it. It's 6 sessions, and it's at defendingamericacourse.com. And I think it's a very important idea because the left is just going crazy. I mean, you listen to some of their stuff. It is so nutty and so deranged that we need to be a lot better at defending our country and explaining why the left is so terribly wrong.
Well, look at the terrible deal Bill Clinton said is a good deal for America, and we're going to give Kim Jong-un billions of dollars, and he's promised he's not going to build nuclear weapons. Well, he has nuclear weapons. His son has them. And I think the same thing is being said and the same mistake being made with Iran and the mullahs of Iran with nuclear weapons.
I think that's right, and I went back. My newsletter at Gingrich Productions, which will come out tomorrow, it comes out for free, is going to be on over the years how often I've said we need a very different strategy, going all the way back to Bill Clinton in 1994. You could just tell it was going to fail, and it has, and it's very dangerous for us as a country to have policies like this because they put American cities at very genuine risk.
It's all true. And, look, this is not a game anymore. And we've discussed, I won't ask you here, how to deal with North Korea. I still stand by me saying that there is absolutely no good answer here. And we probably may have in the middle of this hurricane hitting the southern Florida coming up early this weekend. I mean, we could definitely be finding ourselves in a situation where North Korea is going to launch another ICBM, potentially over Japan again or Guam. And that will precipitate a major military crisis, especially if it's directed at Guam, and we'll be watching closely. I've likened the Democratic Party. Tell me if you think this is too extreme on my part, and you're a pretty good barometer. I look at the media now and their breathless hysteria. I mean, it's so out of control. I've never seen anything like it, and we've always known there's a biased media. The Democrats, pretty much the same thing. And it is Trump derangement syndrome, and it's like the very name of Trump causes them to bubble and fizz like Alka-Seltzer and melt in water. But it's like they wake up, and you used this analogy once, in the morning, and they can't help themselves anymore. They're like drug addicts, and they've got to find a reason for that day to hate this man because they have already predetermined that they know better than the American people, that he's the wrong person. We made a mistake. If only we had listened to them. And they need their drug every day. Good analogy, bad analogy?
Well, it's not a bad analogy. I think the New York Times, for example, wakes up in the morning and all the writers I know Donald Trump did something horrible. I wonder what it was.
True.
But that's how they started. But I think on the hard left, you'll notice, by the way, and this is going to be very interesting to watch with Schumer and Pelosi. When Feinstein said, Trump was right about DACA, that provision by Obama was very legally doubtful. She's now being threatened with a primary opponent in California because on the left it's unacceptable to suggest that it's unconstitutional. Well, I wonder the same thing. Yesterday they had this deal that Schumer and Pelosi were part of. The president actually referred to them as Chuck and Nancy. I'm curious how the left is going to react to that because they are so hostile to the president that it'll be very interesting to see the kind of backlash these two take for even having thought about being positive in dealing with the president.
Well, that's the analogy. I mean, it's almost Pavlovian at this point. They wake up, they crave their drug. Their drug is hatred towards this president. And if the only thing they can get is Melania wearing high heels, that's what they'll use that day. And that justifies the predetermined outcome on everything he does. I don't think the government, I've always believed government is the problem, not the answer, as you have. But I got to be honest. I mean, government working in Texas, local government, state government, and the federal government was about as flawless as you can get. And now the government's going to be tested again in Florida. What are your thoughts?
That's right. Look, I mean, the Federalists, George Washington, Jefferson, all the guys who wrote the Constitution, they wanted a lean but effective government. They didn't want a weak government that was incompetent. They wanted a limited government, but in the areas the government's responsible for, they wanted it to be very, very effective. And I think it's remarkable to see the impact of Trump and Pence, who are very practical people. I mean, Pence's governor was a very can-do kind of guy. The President Trump, of course, is a builder and a guy who understands construction and understands all these things. They've really had a very powerful, very positive effect on what's going on. I think the Federal Emergency Management Agency's done a remarkably good job, and I think there's a lot of positives to be said about how this has developed. So I think we can all be grateful that you had effectiveness at the federal level, the state level, and the local level. You have to look to Florida, where, as you know, my daughter Kathy lives in Key Biscayne. It's a little scary, the size of the hurricane that's coming their way right now. And people are trying to evacuate, although I got a note from a good friend who said that it is virtually impossible now to drive out of the state, that the combination of the traffic jams and the fact that literally gas stations are running out of gasoline to sell.
Well, you know what? There was even Governor Rick Scott. I always felt he was sort of, unassuming type of guy, but he's a really efficient governor. And I've gotten to know him well because he's always up in New York trying to persuade companies to move to Florida because there's less burdensome regulation and lower taxes. And he's very successful at it. He steals one company out of New York and New Jersey a day. It's hilarious. But what I love about him is he saw the gasoline problem. He talked to surrounding states. They were able to lift some of the usual regulations to assist Florida in getting the gasoline into Florida for the people that need to make their escape. And that to me was one of the most brilliant moves I'd ever seen anybody make so early before a crisis is coming.
Well, and it's frankly the kind of leadership that people want. Of course, Rick Scott was a businessman, ran a big company, understands being practical. I mean, all the things that liberalism despises and undervalues, Rick Scott personifies.
Yeah. Look, I think that there is a way, and this now dovetails into the next 14 weeks, and the Republican Party, I think, is facing not only an identity crisis, but a crisis of confidence. Mitch McConnell at 18%. Congress has been in the low teens in terms of their approval overall. The media is at one of their lowest approval rates ever. And I think the Republicans have 14 weeks to fulfill their promises. This is make or break time, in my opinion. Next year will be too late. Your thoughts?
I couldn't agree more. And I think in particular, I would focus in on the tax cuts, where the president was very good this week, and Secretary of the Treasury Mnuchin has been very good in describing what they want to get done. And I think that starting with the Ways and Means Committee, which I hope will begin markup within a week or 10 days, we really have an opportunity here to dramatically improve the economy. I came up in New York. In fact, I'll be on the set with you tonight for the TV show, and I talked to an investment group at lunch today, and one of them came over to me afterwards and said, we could have a 6 or 7 year bull market of constantly rising stock prices if Trump continues to succeed. He said the stage is being set here for people to really believe in America again, and that could have just an enormous effect across the whole economy. And that's what we have to work on. And I think getting the tax cuts done by Thanksgiving, I mean, all this worry about the end of the year is baloney. They need to get the tax cuts done by Thanksgiving to have the effect on the economy next year, to have the kind of boom in jobs and take-home pay we need.
Are you confident it gets done? Because I'm not.
Even money. I think
that's sad. That's really sad.
Well, no, look, I think even money, this is a hard business. And
it's not that hard. Now you sound like Mitch McConnell, God forbid. Well, geez, the expectations were too high. I've only been here 9 months, and I've only promised it 8 years. What did you guys expect? I've got to go to the Senate dining room. All right, I'm very sarcastic. Forgive me. We'll take
yes, you are.
I've got to go get a haircut in the Senate haircut place. I got to, my lunch, and we have to have cigars and some brandy.
You're on a roll.
I'm on a roll. That's right. Okay, quick break. More with Newt Gingrich on the other side. All right, 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number. Understanding Trump, the 12-week now bestseller, number one bestseller at one point of Understanding Trump. Newt Gingrich is with us. He's got a brand new online class that he himself is teaching, and it's called Defending America, and you can get it at, I think it's defendingamericacourse.com, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
And you actually have a class start date of Thursday, September the 14th, so it's coming up soon.
Well, we're very excited by it, and I think when you look at what the left is saying and how crazy they are, having some kind of program that gives everyday Americans the ability to argue and win the argument, I think is a very important part of where we are right now as a country. And that's why I wrote it and put it together. That's my course, and I think people will find it both interesting and useful.
Yeah. Let me go back to Congress and what they need to do. And we've gone over the specifics of this. I like the president's plan. I think it's very Reagan-esque. 7 brackets to 3. Middle-class tax cuts, corporate tax cuts, repatriation for multinationals at a low rate, so we invest in factories and manufacturing centers. Energy independence, should be a huge goal because we got millions of career jobs there. I'd also like to see some adjustments, like the end of the death tax and double taxation. What else would you like to see as part of this?
Well, I think you've got exactly the key things. If we get a big enough small business tax cut so that small businesses are really incentivized to grow and to add jobs, if we can repatriate a good bit of the $2 to $4 trillion that are locked up overseas, so that money comes back home and gets invested in the country. Some kind of the lowest possible business rate. I'm with President Trump. 15% sounds good. Even 20% would be dramatically better than where we are now, but I'd love to see him get to 15. And I have to say, the folks I talk with tell me with great sincerity that they believe they're going to produce a middle-class tax code so simple that most Americans will be able to fill it out on a large postcard. Now, I'll believe it when I see it, but boy, that sure is an exciting goal, and one that could really change our whole relationship with the tax code and dramatically limit the Internal Revenue Service's ability to do bad things.
By the way, they've been after me now 3 times in a year over the same issue. And I'm like, I didn't get audited one time when Obama was there. What is going on here?
Well, it could be that the IRS bureaucrats regard you as the reason they have a problem.
You know what the sad reality is? You and I both know this is true. There is a deep state, and stuff like this, because we saw this happen, conservative groups being targeted after 2010 with the name Tea Party in it or conservative in it. And the sad reality is that there's not an honest system, and people are singled out for types of audits. I just happen to overpay, so I have zero worry in my heart, no worries at all. And it's just frustrating that that they can use the IRS as a weapon sometimes.
Well, the Clinton system, when I was Speaker, decided to go after me. I ended up getting a reversal of the IRS and a reversal of the Federal Election Commission in federal court. And in the case of the IRS, the judge demanded that they apologize to us because it was such a bad case. But they literally, I found myself the target all of a sudden, and having bureaucrats come at me from every direction. And it's the point you're making, which is, you'd like to think we have the rule of law, but every once in a while you're reminded that there's all too much rule of men and of bureaucrats and politicians in a way that undermines the whole American system.
It's interesting. Like Russia. We don't hear about that anymore. And my guess is there's going to be a lot of egg on the faces of a lot of people in the media. All right, Mr. Speaker, thank you for being with us. And we appreciate you, of course, always joining us. 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program.
What are the penalties for Donald Trump Jr. not telling the truth? What are the rules that you all have set around his testimony?
Any individual who lies to a congressional committee is subject to the penalties of 18 United States Code 1001, which punishes an individual who fails to tell the truth to a government official in this kind of circumstance. And that could be punishable by several years in prison and fines.
And so inside this meeting that Donald Trump Jr. accepted with, as you call them, foreign agents, attended also by Jared Kushner, attended also by Paul Manafort, based on what you know publicly and privately, what are your worst fears about what may have taken place?
My worst fears among them are that this meeting may have been a prelude or an overture to more coordinated activities involving collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians in their interference in our election, and that afterward there was obstruction of justice, which is very much front and center and involves also following the money. And that's the other area that I think is important in the meeting this morning, following the money that may have involved transactions between the Russians and the Trump organizations in Moscow, the letter of intent to build a major residential complex, a Trump Tower, or whatever else may have been contemplated, because the Russian playbook is to entangle and compromise foreign officials. And in this instance, may have been a reason that the White House wanted to conceal or deny evidence and may have fired Jim Comey when the FBI was investigating.
Do you see what phony hypocrites? That was Richard Blumenthal, the worst fear. There's never been any evidence. There's smoke, but there's no fire as it relates to Trump-Russia collusion. And the Richard Blumenthal talking about the penalty if you lie to a Senate committee is several years in prison. Well, what's the penalty if you have subpoenaed documents and you don't turn them over, but you delete them? And then just to make extra sure you're deleting them, you acid wash and bleach bit your hard drives and servers. And just to make triply sure, you take a hammer and you smash any device the emails also might be on. Just smithereens. And when you do hand over something, a device to the FBI, make sure it has no SIM card. It's the phony, sanctimonious, selective moral outrage, feigning of phony outrage. It's really breathtaking. It just takes my breath away. Anyway, 24 now till the top of the hour. 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number if you want to be a part of the program. Joining us now is Sarah Carter, who is with Circa.com. She's got another explosive story exposing the corruption and bias inside the FBI. Now, when former FBI agent Robin Gritz first joined the FBI in 1997, she said she would never have fathomed that her career as a top counterterrorism agent would end due to sexual discrimination, and even worse, leave her working for 2 years selling blush and lipstick at a Macy's makeup counter. But that, of course, she said, is exactly what happened. Here with more on the story about how it includes the deputy director, Andrew McCabe, is Sarah Carter. So what do you got here? This is huge.
It is huge. I mean, Sean, she's one of the few that has come out publicly. There are hundreds more, let me tell you, agents that are out there ready to talk. I know dozens more that have filed EEOC complaints. Those are equal opportunity employment complaints against the FBI, and particularly against Andrew McCabe, who is the deputy director. And, Robin's story is so fascinating because Robin became embroiled in this major battle against McCabe and the higher-ups, some other higher-ups that were working with her. She was actually detailed to the CIA. She is considered one of the top counterterrorism agents in the country, worked on the Daniel Pearl case. She worked on Robert Levinson case, who the Iranians had held and are still holding, and family is looking for answers. She worked on the anthrax case. So this is a woman that wasn't just working at the FBI, in a lower-rung job. She was actually working her way to the top and was detailed to the CIA for a reason, and then ended up in this major battle against McCabe. And lo and behold, who came to her defense was Michael Flynn. So Michael Flynn at the time, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency at the time and had worked with Robin on a number of cases. Not only did Michael Flynn come to her defense, but, Admiral Losey, head of Naval Warfare Command, Special Warfare Command, others who had written letters on her behalf in her fight against McCabe. Now, remember, McCabe, according to Robin and a lot of other people, he kept himself surrounded pretty much with his most closest allies. And McCabe is also a very close ally of Hillary Clinton. And so there were a lot of questions. Chairman Grassley is investigating this as well as to his investigation and his involvement in the investigation of Michael Flynn, because Flynn had actually written a letter on Robin's behalf this was 2 years before, McCabe was in charge of this Russia investigation into Flynn, and all the leaks came out on Robin's behalf, defending her and really holding the FBI accountable. And, Robin and others have said there is a cancer inside the FBI. And they're very concerned that beyond the EEOC complaints, sexual discrimination complaints, and other work-related complaints, that there was this club of guys that protected each other, that were very political, and that chose to run the FBI in a manner that was completely opposite of the foundation that they stood on. And that was a very politically biased FBI, they said, people that were willing to cover up.
Let's talk about the latest, because, you've broken a lot of stories now about the FBI, and now we also have the issue of James Comey having a predetermined outcome on the Hillary Clinton email server issue. Long before he ever even came close to completing the investigation, he was writing her exoneration. And you have to interview the main witnesses that would be involved in this. And I have not confirmed that. There were reports all over the place. Did he ever, well, we know in the case of the Christopher Steele dossier that Steele was paying Russian operatives to give him the phony information about hookers at the Ritz urinating on a bed. Where did that investigation ever end up?
This is what's so insane, Sean. People have to think about this and really just, if you lay it all out on the table, it paints a picture that is completely opposite. You had talked about where there's, smoke, there's fire, and there's very little smoke. You're right. There's very little, if none, very small amounts of smoke when it comes to Don Jr. When it comes to Fusion GPS, there is so much smoke. When it comes to what happened with Comey's decision, there is so much smoke. When you think about the Loretta Lynch, Bill Clinton meeting on the tarmac, there's a ton of smoke that needs to be investigated. And unfortunately, we're not seeing those investigations. As far as the special counsel is concerned, we're seeing them behind the scenes on the Hill. And I can tell you this, that when that information came out, at the time, you got to think about the FBI agents on the ground that were investigating this. They were furious. When Comey decided to end that investigation, and now finding out that he was already planning it as far back as April. At the same time, President Obama was making the same statement, that, she didn't have any intent of, misusing or mishandling this classified information. It was, it was gross negligence. And under the law, that's breaking the law. So there are a lot of FBI agents out there, people that were involved in investigating this, that were furious to the point where, and I think I've said this before on your show, that some of the agents actually threw their sandwiches at the television while Comey was making that announcement last July. They were so infuriated by it. They had worked so hard on this case, and they knew it was over. And I think at that point, and there were, there were a lot of people talking about what happened inside the Bureau, but there was a lot of talk that, we don't need to worry about Russia anymore, because they had already assumed that Hillary Clinton was going to win the presidency. And I think everybody at that point that was close to either McCabe or people that were higher ups in the Bureau, they had assumed that she was going to win and that they wouldn't have to deal with this anymore. And unfortunately for them, that didn't happen, and so then they had to backtrack.
Let's talk about the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, because it seems to me now all of these issues are fair game in terms of reopening the case. And if we're going to have equal justice under the law, and we don't have a two-tier justice system, one for the Clintons and one for the rest of us, and it would seem perfectly reasonable that Jeff Sessions now do an open, fair investigation of all of this, because now we pretty much have been tipped off that the fix was in. And does this put Comey himself in more legal jeopardy? We know he had some legal jeopardy as it relates to government material and the Records Act and some other issues that he may have some problems with. Is he now in any legal trouble himself over this, potentially?
Potentially, yes. I would say so. And, right now, this is the big reason why, especially with the subpoenas, they want, Wray, the current FBI director, Christopher Wray, they're also asking for Jeff Sessions to come talk to Congress, explain to us, why haven't we gotten the answers that we've been asking from the FBI? Their failure to put these documents forward or to explain themselves when it comes to the dossier, the Christopher Steele dossier, for them is contemptuous against Congress. So now Congress is asking for that same thing. They're asking,
why did Comey actually pay money to Christopher Steele?
That is what they are trying to find out, Sean. That is a main question. I was just talking to sources late last night about this. People are trying to find out how much, if they did pay, did they verify anything in this dossier?
Well, didn't Christopher Steele pay Russians for that information?
Yeah, and you know what? There's also questions about who paid Christopher Steele as well, and how much the Russians were involved in that dossier, because it was a perfect setup, right? The Russians, who had already been in connection with Fusion GPS, remember Fusion GPS, Senator Grassley believes, was lobbying on behalf of the Russians against the Magnitsky Act, Sergei Magnitsky, who died. And basically, we have the Magnitsky Act that keeps those Russians out of the United States from doing business here. And it's been the ire of Vladimir Putin. I mean, this is something that he wants removed. And so now you have Fusion GPS, right, who sets up this Trump dossier, and it spreads around and eventually leaves the hands of never Trumpers to the Democrats, and it's out there, who's connected to the Russians. And now you've got Christopher Steele, who we believe is paying Russians for some of this information.
All right, stay right there. Sarah Carter with Circa.com. Sarah, when we come back, I want to ask you about Dana Rohrabacher's meeting with Julian Assange and an interview I had with him yesterday. So stay right there. We'll come back. Investigative reporter Sarah Carter, just breaking down one story after another. All right, as we continue with investigative reporter Sarah Carter from Circa.com. All right, so I had Dana Rohrabacher on, and we're not hearing an awful lot about Russia anymore. And it appears when you couple with what he says, Julian Assange, the one guy that would know where he got the information for the DNC and the emails from, and he says it's not Russia. He told me 5 times, told Dana Rohrabacher he's got proof. And then you have all these former intelligence agents that looked at the routing of this, and they said there's no way it came from Russia. What do you think the odds are that it was never Russia and that the American people have been lied to for all of these months?
I mean, I think based on what we're hearing, and we don't have the evidence that it was Russia. I think based on what we're hearing alone, this needs to be investigated, because Julian Assange is the first person, right? He would know directly where that information came from. And he's saying publicly, I can show you, I can prove that it didn't come from Russia, but I need to talk to someone, and no one's talking to him. The people that count aren't reaching out to him and talking to him. They aren't making it possible to get to the truth. And when you talk to other people who are involved, and if you just look at the reports coming out of the FBI, even from the intelligence community, nowhere in any of those reports, Sean, mark my words on this, nowhere in any of those reports is it definitive that Russia was the one that went into the DNC server, and only Russia. What we do know is that Russia was phishing. They did fish, and they did get into people's emails, and they were able to do certain things. But nowhere in those reports do they say definitively that it was Russia. They allude, they assess, they surmise, but they never say definitively. So these questions have to be answered. As an investigative reporter, I could interview people and say they surmise, but they have no proof.
Remember, they kept saying there's a lot of smoke, but nobody ever gave us the definitive evidence. All right, Sarah, we'll stay with this story, I promise. Thank you so much for being with us. 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of the program. We'll take a quick break. News roundup, information overload, and the latest on the DACA debate straight ahead.
Stay right here for our final news roundup and information overload.
It's so obvious. It's not even a dog whistle anymore. It's just flat out bias, flat out discrimination that they're touting coming from this White House.
Increasingly, there's a sign out there that's been hung up in the White House or outside the White House saying, if you're not white, you're not especially welcome. And that is so sad.
Is this a stability issue? Because I feel like some might argue when you see him off prompter, he doesn't really seem to be there.
What do you mean?
Doesn't really connect with the reality of the situation.
I don't think he really understood his decision, and I'm not being facetious. There are people inside the White House that were saying that he really didn't understand the impact of his decision. And
for years,
He has been an outspoken, unabashed admirer of the eugenics-based, race-specific immigration bans of the 1920s Klan era in U.S. politics. I mean, Jeff Sessions has always stood for this stuff, but so has Donald Trump as a public political figure.
All right, so the phony, false narrative, immigration, racist, because Russia's gone. Okay, if that is the standard that the left wants to take, by the way, News Roundup Information Overload Hour, Sean Hannity Show, 800-941-SEAN. Okay, then let's listen. Let's take a trip down memory lane and apply the same standards to the following people. Chuck Schumer, Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama. Pay close attention. This is them. Listen.
People who enter the United States without our permission are illegal aliens, and illegal aliens should not be treated the same as people who entered the U.S. legally.
The president's decision to end DACA was heartless and it was brainless.
When we use phrases like undocumented workers, we convey a message to the American people that their government is not serious about combating illegal immigration.
Hundreds of thousands of families will be ripped apart.
If you don't think it's illegal, you're not going to say it. I think it is illegal and wrong.
Tens of thousands of American businesses will lose hardworking employees.
A biometric-based employer verification system with tough enforcement and auditing is necessary to significantly diminish the job magnet that attracts illegal aliens to the United States.
They may have known no other country but ours and have voluntarily registered themselves.
All illegal aliens present in the United States on the date of enactment of our bill must quickly register their presence with the United States government or face imminent deportation.
And the argument there, Mr. President, is Americans don't want to do the work. We just can't find American workers to do the work. Mr. President, that is a crock in many instances. It's just not true. In my view, Trump's decision to end the DACA program for some 800,000 young people is the cruelest and most ugly presidential act in the modern history of this country. I cannot think of one single act which is uglier and more cruel. We have all been educated that economics is about supply and demand. If you don't get the workers you want, you raise wages and you raise benefits. You don't simply open the door and bring in other workers at low wages.
So I believe absolutely that we have to move aggressively toward comprehensive immigration reform. I will end the deportations.
Poverty is increasing, and if wages are going down, I don't know why we need millions of people to be coming into this country as guest workers who will work for lower wages than American workers and drive wages down even lower than they are right now.
But we have to send a clear message. Just because your child gets across the border, that doesn't mean the child gets to stay. So we don't want to send a message that is contrary to our laws or will encourage more children to make that dangerous journey.
So I will fight for comprehensive immigration reform and a path to citizenship. I will fight to stop partisan attacks on the executive actions that would put dreamers, including those with us today, at risk of deportation. And if Congress continues to refuse to act as president, I would do everything possible under the law to go even further.
We've got to do several things, and I am, adamantly against illegal immigrants. People have to stop employing illegal immigrants. Come up to Westchester, go to Suffolk and Nassau counties, stand in the street corners in Brooklyn or the Bronx. You're going to see loads of people waiting to get picked up to go do yard work and construction work and domestic work. This is not a problem that the people who are coming into the country are solely responsible for. They wouldn't be coming if we didn't put them to work.
My proposal will keep families together, and it will include a path to citizenship.
The number of immigrants added to the labor force every year is of a magnitude not seen in this country for over a century. If this huge influx of mostly low-skilled workers provides some benefits to the economy as a whole, it also threatens to depress further the wages of blue-collar Americans and puts strains on an already overburdened safety net.
Immigrants aren't the principal reason wages haven't gone up. There are those in the immigrants' rights community who have argued passionately that we should simply provide those who are illegally with legal status, or at least ignore the laws on the books and put an end to deportation until we have better laws. But I believe such an indiscriminate approach would be both unwise and unfair. It would suggest to those thinking about coming here illegally that there will be no repercussions for such a decision. And this could lead to a surge in more illegal immigration. These are students, they're teachers, they're doctors, they're lawyers. They're Americans in every way but on paper. Those who enter the country illegally and those who employ them disrespect the rule of law, and they are showing disregard for those who are following the law. We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked, and circumventing the line of people who are waiting patiently, diligently, and lawfully to become immigrants.
Real reform means establishing a responsible pathway to earn citizenship.
All right, 800-941-SEAN is a toll-free telephone. Well, sounds an awful lot like Donald Trump there. Anyway, joining us to discuss and debate, we have Maria Elvira, Cuban-American journalist, broadcast TV presenter, worked apparently for fake news CNN for a period of time, then Univision, Telemundo, and Francisco Hernandez, an immigration attorney, both here to discuss the uproar. And by the way, Maria, I hear you're in the path of this hurricane that is coming, and I just want you to know you're in our thoughts and prayers. This is beyond scary Hurricane Irma.
Yep.
Didn't it sound like the Democrats sound like Donald Trump and sound like conservatives back in the day?
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for having me, Mr. Hannity. 1996 Immigration Reform Act signed by Clinton is the one that has given the legal hammer to the Trump administration to hit on illegals. It is that law that has allowed for the local cops to get deputized and become immigration agents, and is the law that has given the privilege to the local cops, to the local jails to detain over 48 hours. So it's true. The Democrats have given the Trump administration the pathway to do what they're doing right now with the immigration. And it's very important for us to remember that Barack Obama had the opportunity to legalize or to follow the Constitution and to give a legal standing to the DACA kids over 8 years, and he didn't. And he threw a bone to my community, the Hispanic community, at the end of his presidency by signing an executive order called the DACA. And now it's in the hands of the Republicans, but I'm sure that we can discuss that later.
And it was temporary, as, you know, it was never designed, even in its, the name of it is temporary, delayed. And so, Francisco, the one thing that bothered me is I can play for you. I don't want to take up precious airtime, but I've been playing on this program montages of then President Obama saying over and over again, we have a constitution. I can't, through the stroke of a pen, undo laws, even laws that I don't like, that I believe may do damage. You know, I don't have the power to do that. People wish that I did, but I don't. Then he did it anyway. So what the president has done here, not only did he give Congress 8 months to get their act together, now they've been given an additional 6 months. And he, unlike Obama's, he's going to respect co-equal branches of government. He won't usurp the enumerated powers of the Congress. And now they have 6 months to do their job. Let's see what they come up with.
Well, Mr. Hannity, you and I for 17 years have been arguing that it is Congress's job to do it. The problem with it now is that President Trump wrote the big check, and he can't cash it without Congress doing it. So Congress is going to sit back and watch President Trump.
The big check for what?
The big check on immigration reform. Everybody agrees we got to do something. We don't agree on the House, but we agree on the whats. President Obama did it simply because he didn't even have support in his own party to pass immigration reform after the Affordable Care Act. But he did what he could. We can talk about expanded powers or not, but George Bush took us to war against Iraq on an executive order. I mean, come on. You know, it's not a Democrat-Republican issue. If you might even remember in the early 2000s, immigration reform failed with a Democratic Congress and President Bush on temporary worker visas because Democrats think they're going to join the unions. You know me well enough. I take shots at both sides. But
well, I'll tell you, Republicans want cheap labor, and the Democratic Party, they want votes. And they think they'll have a greater chance at a higher.
But you know what? They're both wrong.
Maria, what were you going to say?
Yeah, let me just Francisco. I think that what you're saying could be true, but at the same time, we have to be very transparent and we have to be honest here. President Obama had 8 wonderful years, or specifically at the beginning of his presidency, to have put some political capital and to have fulfilled his promises to take care of Hispanics.
You're right.
And
Right,
so
stay right there, Maria. I don't want to interrupt you. I got to take a quick break here. Stay right there. At 800-941-SEAN, our toll-free telephone number as we continue. Maria Elvira is with us, and also Francisco Hernandez is with us, talking about DACA. You know, so at the end of the day, you've got 6 months. I'm sure you've had many meetings over the years, Francisco, with members of Congress. They have, this is their legislative duty. The law of the land is people get deported right now. And the president has graciously given Congress time to come up with whatever solution they want to come up with. But he's insisting on no sanctuary cities. He's insisting on some type of wall that we build. And I don't think he's going to back down one bit, nor do I think he should.
Well, I mean, he's got to set his priorities, but he can't do it without Congress doing it. We know we're not going to build a wall. I mean, come on. We talked about that before, Mr. Hannity. We're going to have to legalize 100,000 Mexicans to build it if we want it done right. But regardless, if you want to do under the pretense that we're going to, that's fine. We don't care what we do. Just do something. We've been at this for 17 years. We tried to build a wall in 2002, and we didn't get anywhere. I mean, let's just get down to the temporary worker visas. Let's come up with a way of earned citizenship, no amnesty. You and I have not disagreed on that. It's just the House.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when you say sanctuary cities, Francisco, I think that you and I agree that every time that a group of Hispanics come out and says that they are in favor of sanctuary cities, we're looking like idiots.
Oh,
because
yes.
the message that we're sending to our fellow Americans is that we want to protect criminals. We want to protect the clean lady.
But I've said for years that there's no such thing as a sanctuary city.
Absolutely, there are no legal definitions, but perception is reality. And when we say we are in favor of sanctuary cities, we're sending the wrong message. We've got to say we want immigration reform law. We want to know what are we going to do with 11 million people that are here already, and 50% of them have been here for more than 13 years. And they have homes and kids and cars and friends and churches. So we need to do that. But sanctuary city is a bad word that we should not be pronouncing.
It is, but it doesn't even exist.
Do you agree?
It's a political phantom.
Me, right?
It's a political phantom. It doesn't exist. A city cannot oppose the federal government. What they're really talking about, these immigration holds, and quite frankly, we're going to find out if those are constitutional or not here pretty shortly. As you know, a Texas federal judge has enjoined the SB 4, which quite frankly, I called it a hollow law. It is a law that requires police officers to do what they were already supposed to be doing anyway. So you and I don't disagree on that, except we keep coming up with these little patches everywhere by state. They're all getting held unconstitutional, and Congress just sitting there. I thought, I got to give President Trump credit. Give him 6 months to do it. It's the line in the sand. Let's sit down and talk about it.
Yeah, right, no, it's not only Trump. It's the Congress. It's Congress. The Republican Party controls the House and the Senate, and these kids are the best of the best. So I think that the Republican Party, through our U.S. Congress, should then step up to the plate and give some type of legality, which is another thing. Amnesty is a bad word. Citizenship may be a bad word. Maybe we should review the 1965 immigration reform law. Maybe we should not have a family chain immigration. Maybe. But these are the best of the best because these kids are Americans. So you agree that if the Trump administration would have allowed DACA to fall into the DAPA lawsuit that was established by Texas, we would have a temporary injunction, and those kids would be deportable now. Do you agree with me? So they did the best they could under the circumstances that Obama left us.
Let them earn their residency. Sure, we can talk about citizenship
All
down
right,
the road.
I don't mean to cut you short. We're going to have to end it there. Maria, stay safe with the hurricane that's headed your way. Hurricane Irma, if I can remember the name. We have too many hurricanes these days. And Francisco, we appreciate you being on. When we come back, I'm looking at the phones. People, I don't know why they're compelled to call me and tell me, I'm not going. They're evacuating me. I'm not leaving. I would suggest you leave. That's my advice, especially if it's an evacuation order. This is serious bad stuff here. We'll take a break. More on Hurricane Irma when we come back. This is the Sean Hannity Show. All right, 25 now till the top of the hour. 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number. You want to join us? All right, people complaining. I got to get to the phones. Let me get to the phones. We got Lourdes in Miami. He's going to be riding out Irma. Uh-oh. Yep. How close are you to the shore?
I'm in the middle of the whole thing and waiting.
Yeah.
I even signed in on Facebook. There's are you going to the Irma party? And I signed in. I'm there. I'm smack in the middle. I'm loving it.
They're not. What county are you in? Because I know Broward County. I thought Miami was being evacuated as well.
No, only the beaches. Remember, because.
All right. So you're how many miles inland are you?
I think I'm like I think my husband just said it, like 10.
10.
I'm bad with that, okay? I'm in the Gables. You know.
All right, let me ask you a question. So you feel comfortable making this decision. They're not telling you to evacuate where you are, right?
No. Yeah, and I wrote out Andrew, so, hello.
It's so funny because I got two groups of friends. I got the write 'em out friends, and they're like rolling their eyes every time something happens. Look, if you were asking me what you should do, I would say probably get further away. As we get closer, look at a place that might be a little bit safer. But I'm fairly libertarian at this point in my life, and you're old enough, mature enough, smart enough to make your own decisions. Okay. I just urge you to have a backup plan. What's a backup plan? If God forbid.
Oh my God, my backup plan is I don't drink, so my backup plan is open the bottles. And I don't even drink. That's my backup plan. And so
I don't know if that's
dance it away.
So you're really signed up. You're signed up for an Irma hurricane party. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, I sort of got on Facebook. I could have stopped laughing, and I'm like, I'm in because I'm here. And but by the way, don't let this change your mind about moving down to Florida. Don't think I forgot.
No. Listen, I have a place down that's right in harm's way, like everybody else. I have a condo, and listen, I never worry about property. I just want you to be safe. At the end of the day, my advice to you would be just make sure you're safe, whatever that means. I'm not in your shoes. I don't know what they're telling you. For anybody that is being told to evacuate, don't make the mistake of the Houston mayor. Evacuate. My advice is because then you end up putting other people in harm's way when they have to fly in and save you at a low altitude and drop a basket to try and get you out of there, and they're going to be having to save everybody at this party. If they say to evacuate, they look. We have science now. We know when tornadoes are forming. We can see you have so much advance notice that this is a really, really powerful, big, massive hurricane that's headed in your direction. So my advice to you is take it seriously, and I would, but I'm just telling other people, if they say get out. That's what my advice is. And if you think you're being
near water, you got to get out.
Look, at the end,
you're stupid if you stay.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be pretty stupid to stay. I just don't want I don't want people dying over a hurricane. Does that make sense? It's not worth it. Your life's not worth it.
No, of course not. No, and besides, Sean, I got to meet you. I'm your sister. You've never met. Remember?
That's right. I got to meet Lourdes.
No,
all right, Lourdes. Listen, you do me a favor. Check in with me next week. Let me know you turned out okay. All right? Send us a note.
Oh my God, I will. With my favorite conservative. Yeah, I will.
Well, Miami Beaches, just so you know, the Miami Beach mayor said that residents must leave. So you're pretty close there. There's official warnings listed of up to 10 feet storm surging in Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale. No buildings we can guarantee to keep people safe. So I'm just giving you the headlines here. It could impact every major city now in Florida. The FEMA chief is saying this is going to be devastating. Thousands of troops are already deployed. They already have stations to bring in supplies immediately. I called people at the White House today to get a statement from them. The military and the state police are escorting fuel trucks in so all these cars can get out. You got people killing each other over plywood at Home Depot. You have, nuclear plants are in the path of this thing, and evacuation orders have been given for Savannah, Georgia. So I'm just saying, this is the real deal to me. And you just better, you've been warned. There's, the headline on Drudge today, you have been warned. And the question is, which way is Irma going to turn? So I would take this at the highest level of seriousness in terms of don't play with this. Don't play with Mother Nature here. You've seen the devastation in Houston, and it can get worse elsewhere, okay?
Yeah.
All right, but everybody's in my prayers. Look, just like with Houston, the country's going to be there for you. The government, look, I got to say, Rick Scott's been doing amazing. Everybody else seems to be doing amazing. All right, so hang in there, Lourdes. We love you, and I want to talk to you next week. Make sure you're okay. But listen to what they tell you to do. That's my advice. All right, back to our phones, 800-941-SEAN, if you want to be a part of the program. Let's say hi to Amy. She's in Colorado. Amy, hi, how are you? Welcome to the Sean Hannity Show.
Hi, Sean. Sean. I hope you're having a great day today.
I am. What's going on?
Well, I just have a comment about Congress and the whole DACA thing with Trump. I really appreciate what he's doing, sticking to the law, sticking to what should be done. And, I mean, I have a 10-year-old that we adopted from Guatemala, and we brought her back here, you know, legally, the right way, and she's a dreamer, too. She has her own dreams. But I don't have any faith in Congress that they're going to do anything about this other than make them all legal. So, you know, so far they've tried to you know, stop Trump at every level. So I don't doubt that it's going to be any different.
Listen, it's, you know, you heard the tape yesterday, right? You know, you have this teacher in school and this kid is wearing, you know, a Trump T-shirt and he's told to turn it inside out and compared it to Nazis. You know, I explained this to somebody yesterday. I want to be very clear what I say here. I watch the media now, and I don't watch them often because I think they're so terrible and so bad at what they do. I don't even think that they recognize that they're all suffering with this myopic Trump derangement syndrome. This is a broader answer for you. And it's so bad. I mean, I think you can liken the media now to a bunch of drug addicts. And the drug they're addicted to is hating Donald Trump. And their hatred, you know, they need their fix every minute of every day. And they can't give up this hatred. And at the end of the day, I've always been a believer that hate is never a good thing because I think hatred ends up boomeranging back on the person that's hating. So I think the same thing's going to happen in the media. They don't even recognize how they're all part of this groupthink, robotic, mindless obsession that they have. They've convinced themselves that they're so much smarter than everybody else in the country. They've convinced themselves that he is the embodiment of evil. They have believed their own rhetoric about him, and they just keep doubling down and tripling down and tripling down and tripling down. You know, you don't hear anything about Russia anymore. And when we find out that they've lied the entire time, which I believe is very likely, as Dana Rohrabacher said yesterday, how do they ever get any credibility back? Now, we already know that many of these organizations colluded with Hillary Clinton. It was proven in WikiLeaks. And what I think they're going to do is they're just going to move on to the next thing and act like they never reported on Russia. And I promise you, I'm going to make it my business that they're going to eat every word that they've ever said. So the answer is, you know, this is the same thing that you're dealing with, right? What's the difference?
Yeah, there is no difference, I don't think. You know, they're making Trump out to be the bad guy here when it was really Obama in the first place circumventing the law and circumventing the Constitution.
Well, and you know, that was the amazing thing about DACA. I mean, the president wanted to go by the rule of law. The president could have easily just usurped congressional power and changed it and taken it back and just said, you know, obey the laws of the land. But, OK, we're going to give Congress an opportunity to do their job and we'll hand them back the enumerated powers that Barack Obama took for them. You would think they'd be happy. But Congress is like, oh, man, now we have to do our job. Well, why did he do this to us? I'm like, because that's your job. They don't want to make tough decisions. They want to sit and they want to go to the Senate and House dining rooms and smoke cigars and talk about the stupid people that are living in this country that make America great. They're so out of touch. You know, there does become a cultural atmosphere. I've seen it in New York. I've seen it in Los Angeles. I see it here in D.C., too, where they just get out of touch, a lot of these people, with the people that work hard, make this country great, play by the rules, provide the goods and services that we all want, need, and desire. They build the country. They built this country. And they seem so out of touch with what the lives of most people are really like. And that's why I've never been a big supporter my entire career in government. Government is not the answer to our problems. Government is the problem. It's always been the problem. Now, government can do some good things. I mean, we saw, I think, a little bit of government working at its best down in Texas. I see the government preparations going into Florida and how seriously they're taking it. And I think that's good, too. And we certainly need the government to deal with North Korea and radical Islam and ISIS and Iran and, you know, all of these hotspots around the world. So, you know, government has its role. But to get into every aspect of the human existence and tell us how big a soda we can buy and how much salt we can eat And if we're dying, we can't even try an experimental drug without them wanting to drag us off to jail, which I was talking with Dana Rohrabacher yesterday, talking about the movie Dallas Buyers Club. We don't need the nanny state. You know, we're pretty much, you know, and it would even go to this issue to some extent. There are going to be people that decide they're not going to leave their homes. If you're able-bodied and you want to make that decision, you know, what do you want? A government that's going to come in and drag you out of your home? I have a very tough time making people do something they don't want to do like that. You know, I don't agree with their decision. I would strongly, in the strongest possible terms, say, you know what? Don't be silly. Don't risk your life. But at the end of the day, what are you going to do? Put chains on them, arrest them, and cuff them, and take them off to jail and move them out of their house? These are tough decisions. I'm a believer first in freedom. The great thing about America is you have freedom. You have choices. Liberals love choices. You have the choice to get up and go to work and work 2 jobs or 3 jobs, and then you have the choice to watch TV all day. But whatever choices you make, you're gonna suffer the consequences of those choices. Anyway, I'm dragged off here. I appreciate it. Thanks for being with us. 800-941-SEAN. Danny is in Miami. Danny, how are you? You're riding this thing out too, huh?
I sure am. I basically everything is boarded up, and hoping for the best. And,
how far are you to the coast?
We're a good, I would say, about 30 to 35 miles away. There's evacuation zones down here. Right now, they're recommending zones A and B, and I'm in zone D.
Now, what if they recommend you get the hell out of there? What are you going to do?
Then, here's the thing. If I see things are going to be really bad, I'm not going to wait for the recommendation. I don't wait.
Look, I mean, here at the end of the day, here's the question you got to ask yourself. And I get it. I mean, and I talked about this last week. The saddest thing when you see something like what happened in Texas happen is, you know, I know what it takes to get a home, and people, it is their life in that home, their life's blood and energy and time. I mean, it's their life's work in that home and everything they own in that home. And it matters to people. And to know that all that you work for is now gone is devastating. That's why it's such devastation. But at the end of the day, if you have a choice that you're going to lose your home and the contents of your home, or most of it, and you come out with your life, you know, to me, there's no option. There's no thinking. There's no thought to that decision. You save your life. And so for those people that are being told to evacuate, my strongest advice to you is I love you all. I want you to survive first. You know, material things can always be replaced. You can't replace an individual.
And before I go, Sean, yeah. I would like to also mention about DACA. Mm-hmm. I came to our country when I was 4.5 years old. I believe wholeheartedly in what the president is doing. And if I can, I'm going to explain to you real quick why. We came from Cuba. My father had the option to come here illegally. He did not. He waited from 1965 to 1968, working in fields at half rations to get here legally, to come to this country and live the American dream legally, not illegally.
Listen, I got to run. I got to tell you about LifeLock here, but I can say I think most of us relate to that story. Yes, I agree legally. My grandparents all came from Ireland, no money, no real chance of a much better life. They worked their fingers to the bone. Their hope and dreams were for their kids and grandkids, and we all stand on their shoulders. And that's why I always say they were far better people than I am. And they gave me every opportunity I have in my life, and you know, I'm very grateful to their sacrifice. That's what love is. That's what families do. Anyway, good call. Appreciate it. I hope people pay very close attention. We'll obviously have more on the program as we get closer to this Hurricane Irma. We're going to stay on it. We'll have more tonight on Hannity. All right, Hannity tonight, 10 Eastern, Fox News Channel. We'll have, obviously, the very, very latest with all the reporters on the ground with Hurricane Irma. Joe Bastardi, Adam Housley is going to be in the Florida Keys tonight. They're in great danger. They have an evacuation order in place. Rick Reichmuth is going to join us. We also have Newt Gingrich will weigh in on the DACA hypocrisy. And then we'll check in with Laura Ingraham. We'll have more on Hurricane Irma and Luke Rosiak and Sarah Carter, 10 Eastern tonight, Hannity.